Hello, good people of the internet. What you're about to watch is part one of a four-part series by myself, Chetan Narang, and my good friend Rocco Jarman from Eyes Wide Open Live. We decided to call it Beyond Politics because this is quite literally beyond the political game we are all playing right now collectively. Part one, which is today's video, is all about why. Why we need this change at all. Why the complexity of the world we live in right now is literally calling us out to outgrow the games that we have been playing so far, and also especially outgrow the paradigms we have been living in so far, because if we do not, we limit ourselves. Now we are so attached to the paradigms we are living in that we ourselves restrict our growth. It's almost like that baby inside a mother's womb. If you could by any means communicate with that baby would literally say, I don't want to go through the discomfort of being born. I'm super comfortable right now. Let me just live here. And everyone literally on the other side would be shouting at that baby, would be crying themselves out that listen to us, come out, because there is life at the end of this tunnel that you want to see. You would be limiting yourself if you do not come out. This video series is literally that kind of a call out. Regular viewers of my channel would note that I do not quite talk about political issues on the Unlearning Playground. That is not my game. But what is definitely my game, what is definitely one of the chief games I play at the Unlearning Playground, is trying to increase the level of compassion, the level of love, the level of consciousness and self awareness in my viewers. And something that Rocco points towards in today's video, something that I also resonate with, is that one of the key areas where human beings coordinate right now, or at least try to coordinate right now, is politics. So, if there's any enterprise, any human enterprise that could use more love, more compassion, more consciousness, more self awareness, it is politics. I see all around me people who are interested in politics from the standpoint of being good citizens and also from the standpoint of actually trying to exercise some change in the world. Both of these segments of people are usually approaching the other side, people who do not agree with what they are saying, with contempt, disregard, disrespect, and sometimes absolute hatred. Now, don't feel embarrassed if you feel called out by this. I know this is the truth for people on both sides of the spectrum, the left and the right. And I know it's a spectrum. So people lie either on the extreme ends of the spectrum or somewhere in the middle. But almost everyone who's able to pick a side, almost everyone who knows that they love this side or they hate the other side, approach this equation of politics with this contempt, this disrespect, disregard, or sometimes even hatred. So don't be embarrassed if you feel called out by this. Rather, try to outgrow this paradigm, try to outgrow this perspective, try to approach this entire equation, this entire problem of politics with more love. I think we could all use a little more, in fact, a lot more love in this world. And this four-part video series is an initiation of sorts towards that. So now, along those lines, I present to you part one of my four-part series with Rocco Jarman. This part one will be a discussion on why we need to game change politics. Like this video if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and with an open mind and an open heart, let's get into it.
We don't have a technology problem to solve the problems that we have in the world today, called hunger, economic inequality, green energy. We've got the technology, we just don't have the political will, and we don't have the inclination or the ability to collaborate at scale. We've got a cooperation and a coordination problem. We've got no single story by which to galvanize everybody to coordinate around a project of doing those things. We've got too many incentives tied up in processes that make things worse, and it's not in our interests, our short-term interests, our enshrined interests, to look at things that are going to challenge that and change it. So we've got an incentive problem, we've got a coordination problem, we've got an alignment problem. And the problem is we're aligned in three major ways, the three major paradigms of social cohesion wherein you can dip in and ask people or appeal to people to collaborate for a shared interest is business, politics, and religion. Mm. And of them, they each have multiple expressions. And of those multiple expressions, they're irreconcilable in amongst themselves.
True.
So Christianity, Islam, and whatever, they're not compatible. Then you get the different political ideologies. They're not compatible. And then you get...
At least the actors who consider the single ideology to be their ideology are not compatible with each other. Even though the root, the nectar of those ideologies...
Oh, yeah, I'm only talking about in practice.
Yeah.
Yes,
Agreed.
in practice, they're not compatible. Because some of them, at their root, there is compatibility, but there is a resistance to let go of the parts that are not compatible.
Correct. Absolutely correct. Yes.
Correct. So that's the same as integrating different systems. You've got storage system, you've got your data system, you've got your networking system. If one of those players becomes resistant to something which is actually contrary to integration, you remain unintegrated, unintegrated. Right? So what we have is we have a single platform, like this, of politics, religion, and business, which create different political ideologies, different religions, and different businesses. And then you've got a range of people which are conservative or progressive on all sorts of things. But these people and the resources and the world create the platform layer. And this is just the instantiation of it. Yeah. But these are the ones doing the propagating of that instance. Using these resources. Now they've got every single one of those people. You try and make a business. You're trying to make a business out of people and move them into there. And those are your shareholders, your legislators, your consumers, your employees, but they are not aligned in amongst themselves. But you're trying to get them to be coherent under a story here, whatever that is. In this instance, it's a business story. Or if this was swapped around and this was a religion, these people have got different economic fates. They live at different dharmas. And things are not equal between them, but you're asking them to all we're all in the same boat together. We're not. So there's a lack of integration at so many different levels. And what that means is some people are conservative, some people are progressive, some have not. There's always disparities, and they're not aligned with each other because A is happy with A, B is happy with B, C with C, D with D. But there's a lot of lack of coherence, lack of collaboration. It makes sense?
Perfectly, Rocco.
Yeah. So now, in any system, if you had your parts, first of all, not integrated in themselves, and then not integrated to each other, and then not integrated to the platform, and the system's not integrated to each other, you know what's going to happen.
Disintegration.
Well, lots of effort put into holding it together, and you put strain on the parts. So this is what mental and spiritual health is. I'm now trying to resolve all the lack of coherence that I'm in relationship with in reality. I'm trying to resolve that in myself. And when I feel I become overwhelmed in that project, then my amygdala becomes hijacked and I go into quick thinking, not slow thinking. And then I like to simplify the world into self and other, yes or no, right or wrong, binaries, because I don't have the space or the bandwidth to make complex, nuanced decisions. I just need to be right or to be wrong. And it suits me to be more tribal, to be more polarized, to be more. So that's the problem. And
I want to talk about, okay, I want you to finish your thread, but then I want to talk about how do we go about solving it? Because I think one step is becoming aware of the problem and describing it better.
yeah,
But
yeah.
then I really want to talk about it because we just had the elections in India, and I have seen, I have good friends of good faith who belong on both sides of the scale. They are not extremists. They don't want to murder each other, but in a way they hate each other. In a way they do.
Well,
They
they don't respect each other.
they don't respect each other for sure. Yes.
They are
And
struggling. They're struggling to have their friendship respect bigger than their disappointment that the other person is aligned to something which is so obviously distasteful to them.
exactly,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, yeah.
And
We don't arrive at our mistrusts dishonestly, although just this idea, right? I've been using this idea a lot. Imagine you're watching the Truman Show. But in this Truman Show, not only is one character contrived, but all the actors who think that they're fooling that one actor, they don't realize they're also part of a Truman Show. And the crew and the editors and everybody who think that they're making the show, on some level, there's another show bigger than them watching all of them, watching the drama of this play out. Now, in that show, somebody needs to go for an interview. And this job matters to him. Now, the writers, your fate and your destiny, your dharma, is already decreed that you're going to get that job. You're going to go in a certain life path. Not decreed, but the writers made it so that this guy, that's the arc we want for his story, which means no matter how shit he was in the interview, or how well he did in the interview, was actually really they were going to help him get there anyway. Or if he wasn't going to get the job, no matter how good he was or how shit he was, also made any difference, because at the end of the day, he would attribute a big story to it, but what was going to happen was going to happen, right? Now you try and grab one of those people and console them and say, so you got a flat tire. Oh my God, this interview is so important to me. And you try and tell him that your feelings are real, but the narrative, the story that you attach to this feeling is at least 50% of that is contrived. It's fake. It's not real. In fact, the only real thing that you have is your feeling.
yes.
Because on some level, everything is interpretive story. Now you take this back to the elections or the political divide in any country, anywhere. And we are living in different paradigms where a different version of what's excusable and inexcusable, and what's right and wrong, and what's what I can forgive and what I can't forgive. I've got a misaligned version to you. And not only that, I've got a different narrative of everything that your side did wrong. I see it differently.
Yes.
And what your side did wrong, you see differently.
Yeah.
And Tim Urban basically explained that we think the argument is left versus right. It's not. It's actually different levels of thinking. So on the top, you've got your scientists, then your sports fans, then your lawyers, and then your zealots. The top two they want to get it right. The bottom two want to be right. So for the scientist, he wants to get it right so badly, he can't make any snap decisions, and his whole job is to eventually say, you know what, I might be wrong. I'm actually going to put my idea out there and let other people argue it and challenge it, because my aim is to get the right answer enshrined one day. The sports fan still wants his team to win, but he loves the game more, and he wants the right thing to happen. You know, if your team has to lose one, as long as the right thing happened, you know. Below the line, the lawyer, he doesn't care what's right or wrong. It's his job to make this thing right. You know, but he'll still listen to an argument, because then he has to put together a nice counter argument. That's his job. But the zealot, to even raise an argument, if you tell somebody who believes in transgender rights, who's very upset about it, and you say, but a man is not a woman, Just that statement. A man is not a woman.
Mm.
Boy is not a girl.
Mm.
They'll cancel you. They'll lose their minds completely. Or to say to a religious person, of course, two men should be able to be married. And what they do in their bedroom, if they're not hurting other people, who cares, man? It's their life.
Mm.
Like, are they happy? Do they love each other? Are they kind? Are they growing as people? Yes, that's what I care about. I don't care about who they like. I don't care about how they dress in the bedroom. It doesn't bother me. It shouldn't bother you. To just say that will piss a religious person off, right?
Mm.
So now it's not about left or right, because at left or right, they both have these four qualities of thinking.
Yes.
Now, the top ones create what's called like a, he has a word for it, like a genius, a collective genius, like an archon, something that is high-minded. So we have these high-minded paradigms of what we should be thinking, what we should be doing. But then the opposite exists. We have these things he calls golems, which are these low-minded steamrollers of ideas, which is why Make America Great Again, or these kind of slogans that they don't have to have any substance to them. Everything's about it's propaganda. It's the whole thing is propaganda, and propaganda works on weak-minded people.
Mm.
So you first have to understand the machine that you're in and the game that's being played on you, whether you left or right, whatever. If you can't elevate your thinking and elevate your reasoning, you can't be part of the conversation. You're part of a conversation. I'm just here to tell you that conversation is never going to go anywhere except violence. Because that conversation is not designed to reach a better way forward that assumes both sides can be wrong or right on issues. Yours is invested in your side being right. I can't help you with that. It's not logical. Because the golden rule says, what would I want if the shoe was on the other foot? It means that the same game has to work for both parties. It can't, because they want their side to be right and you want your side to be right. Can't you see that's never going to work? The only option is to look for the transcendent perspective about what is right. And if you entertain that path, by definition, it means some of the shit that you're holding on to is also going to be thrown on the fire. It's also up for grabs. And that goes for a religious argument or a political argument or in a marriage or in anything. And people have got these silly habits, that we think, well, in a marriage, you won the last argument, so it's my turn to win. They don't say that they're doing that, but they believe that somewhere deep inside. We've got all these silly ideas about how arguments and debates should go. That if somebody says, I'm sorry, but about that aspect, you're ignorant. How dare you call me ignorant? It's not a dare. It's just an observation. If you weren't ignorant about that topic, we wouldn't be having this part of the debate. Because, I don't know how else to tell you that you don't know enough to, I understand what you're saying. But you don't understand what I'm saying. And my argument is that for something to be right, it has to be true and relevant. And sometimes people say things that are true but irrelevant. And then because they're true, other people listening think, oh, he won that one. No, he didn't. He just made a true statement that I've got no argument for. Yes, you shouldn't beat women. Yes, we should protect animals. Yes, it's better to do this than that. Yes, that's the truth. Is it relevant to what I'm saying? No. Or they do the other thing. They say something that's completely relevant if it was true, but it's not true. And these are the two games everyone's playing. And until you can stop playing those games and realize that you are a product of that game being played and the thing that's being gamed, just like in social media, Tristan Harris said, we've all been waiting for this moment, the singularity, when AI is going to become more intelligent than humans and, show up in ways that it's just so far advanced from our strengths. And he said, we missed this other moment that already came, where just ordinary technology like internet and social media and Facebook are actually going to undermine human weaknesses, for which you have no defenses because you're not even conscious and aware that they're gaming your critical your cognitive biases, your logical fallacies, your emotion centers. You're being gamed. All advertising is gaming. Telling a story in a movie is a kind of gaming somebody. But when you don't know what game is being played on you, and then you are hating another person or mistrustful or disrespectful towards other people because a different game is being played on them, or a same game with it by different people.
And there's a thing, right, Rocco? A lot of people feel that even the arguments about biases and these games are relevant to the other side, not to them. They feel that it's the other side that is brainwashing people who are now their supporters, but the same is not true for them. That's what they feel. You feel
Yeah,
that?
I mean, I've got a lot of people that were having beautiful conversations with me, and when I suddenly said Israel Palestine, if you are picking a side here, you don't understand what it's going to take to make peace, number one. And number two, neither of them are innocent. There's no party here that hasn't made mistakes, but also no of those mistakes justify other mistakes made to the other side now. And nothing is simple and nuanced, but it's also not infinite. But if you can't at least begin with that, you're never going to get anywhere. You're just never going to get anywhere. And to just make that statement that is so humanistic, they just unfollowed me and they don't speak to me anymore. This is people I've helped. They just don't speak to me anymore because they don't know how to factor into their conversation, their reality with me. They're so galvanized in their hatred against Israel. Now, some of that's justified. You should be disappointed that a state is behaving like that, and they should be accountable and they should change things. But then they just whitewash everything on the other side. And that's you're playing tennis without a net. You want to have only half of a conversation. And I don't think anything in this world is going to be solved by half a conversation.
And that is it, Rocco. Now, what you're hitting here is absolutely true. I feel that is true in, let's just generalize, it's true for all dichotomies that people stand to gain by being on one side of.
Yes.
Right? It's true for all those dichotomies. So we have reached a point where we are saying that what you've just described is true for anyone who can either see a dichotomy out in the world or conjure up a dichotomy in their own minds, and then they stand to benefit from being on one side of the dichotomy and portray hatred on the other side of the dichotomy.
It'll even work if they don't want that to be true. So it'll even work for people who want there to be no sides right, but another third answer to be right.
For people who don't,
whatever we discuss next is going to be equally relevant and meaningful, not just for people that want to be on one side of it, who would wish one side to win. It's also going to be relevant for the people who want there to be a third answer.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So you understand.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, I want this to be resolved for people, and I want, let's say we pick one thread, one dichotomy. Let's say we pick politics, and people are on both sides.
Let's talk left and right. Yeah.
Left and right, right?
Yeah.
And there are people who are outside the dichotomy who say we have no interest in being left or being right.
Yeah.
Things to work, right? So yes.
Let's solve the problem. Right.
So how do we go about solving it, in the sense that I realize that anyone who's watching this and is being triggered by it should already understand that they are a part of the problem. Correct?
Well, if you're triggered by definition, this is a problem you want to solve, because even if you are right, I can assure you, and you can get there by yourself and prove it to be true, that you don't lose the wish to have the right thing done because you become more reasonable about something. So and then if you can be more reasonable, actually you can become more capable of becoming part of the solution. So that's the invitation. In no version of what we're about to do you stand to lose by becoming more reasonable. So let's say you are the most invested in getting the outcome that you believe is right, if that statement is true for you. Having a clear understanding of exactly what motivates the team that opposes you is actually going to help you
bridge the gap.
Well, not even bridge the gap. If you truly want to win, let's say that is the case, know thine enemy, right? You have to really understand where they're coming from. So by that logic, triggering is counterproductive for everything and everyone, most of all yourself, because if you are triggered, it means that, let's say now, they were the evil people that you thought they were and they were fucking with you. It means that you are their puppet, because every time you get triggered,
they win.
That means they can control you, right? So there's no version of this where you want to be triggerable.
Understood. Yes.
And there's no version of this where you don't want to have more reason and more insight.
Yeah.
So, so start there, right?
Yes.
Then you have to ask yourself, what would the world look like if your side won completely? And by that, I mean, when a side wins, when one army beats the other army, the generals don't really want the soldiers to go into their town and rape and burn and trash everything. But every now and again, a victory was so hard to win that bloodlust just needs to come out. Sometimes when the victory was so hard to win and there was so much at stake, which is why you're so emotional, there's never a victory where you don't feel the need for some sort of cathartic revenge or punishment or right. So what's it going to look like when your side wins? Decisively. Honestly. Yeah. Just what's it going to look like? And if you're unsure, if you think it's a nirvana, just remember there's somebody sitting across the next wall from you, your neighbor right next to you in your apartment building, that is thinking exactly the opposite. And would you like to live the consequences of their vision?
Say that again. If I understand correctly, you mean the other person, your neighbor, is actually a supporter of the other side. They are on the other side of the
asked exactly the same question I'm asking you, describing this nirvana or this perfect outcome, which you think now. And just remember, while you convince yourself it's so perfect and clean and tidy, just remember there's somebody across the wall from you that thinks theirs is too. And would you be happy living each other's outcomes? Okay. Number one. Number two, not everybody who I ask that question to just wants the good thing. Some are young people that are pissed off at life and just want to watch the world burn because they're so bitter that they haven't had their opportunity in life yet. Or somebody is so angry at women because he hasn't been able to get a date that he has associated his sense of shame and what he wants to get from the world and how he wants it all to, he wants a sense of justice from the world. For a very small, petty reason. He doesn't have high-minded reason for why he wants side A or side B to win. It's just he's concocted in his head that if side B wins, then he'll be able to have the power that he wants. Then he'll know. Then he'll be able to get validation from women. Then he'll be... People have very strange reasons. We're not all playing the same game.
So do you mean that by virtue of supporting one side, you could be facilitating actors such as those?
You will be, because if there's only two sides, your side is made up of the fringe and the supporters who just want to belong to something, who just want to be part of the winning team so badly that they're controlled. Propaganda exists because it works. It works. The weaker a mind is, the less educated people are, the more psychologically unsophisticated they are, the more wrapped up in their story and their victim story or their anger at somebody else's story, the more they're motivated in that way, the easier they are to co-opt into this project via propaganda.
And consider if one such person is actually the leader of your side, is actually one of the leaders of your side. That's a key situation to be in. So
And
that has to be part of the honest thing that you talked about. I mean, be honest.
Yeah. So it's not just you that's winning, it's some of the worst faith actors in your group that are winning. And then can you not see that there will have to be the next division that will come along, which means you'll have to separate into factions because there'll be a moderate and an extreme faction. And then eventually they'll just become the left and the right.
Okay. We're there.
Until one of them wins, and then there's an extreme and a complacent side, and then they will become the new left and the right. Can you see where this is going? No matter who wins, you're still going to break yourselves into left and right, or you're going to end up in a totalitarian regime where you're not allowed to have your own thought. And there isn't a left and a right. There's just one party. Hello, China. Hello, Russia. Right. Those are your options.
Or the third option, which
hold on, but we only red and blue, right?
Yeah. So if we keep playing the red and blue, the left and right,
you just divide further into red and blue, and then further into red and blue, and further into red and blue. Can you see that your side has reasonable people and unreasonable people and apathetic people and informed people? And the reasonable ones are not all informed, and the unreasonable ones are not all uninformed. It's a quadrant. Reasonable, unreasonable, informed, misinformed. And then there's another dimension, powerful, they have influence to change or do something. Now, what happens when you get somebody who's misinformed, highly motivated to do the wrong thing for wrong reasons, and he's just playing a political game that they're using all their influence in a way that is not going to serve the whole. So just remember that they're going to show up. Right. Which means all that can happen then is one of two outcomes in your current scenario. You either become totalitarian, which means you don't get the permission to have a different opinion, or you keep dividing and dividing and dividing, and the end of that division becomes chaos. Primitive, primal. We just break smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. That trend is towards death. It's towards deconstruction, not construction, not growth, not expansion. Yeah. And then the totalitarian regime becomes stagnant because the only growth there is synthetic growth. When North Korea puts an arena up, it's not because the sports people in that arena can decide whether they're going to win or lose the game. All the audience are sitting there cheering, and they get told what to cheer for. There's a this color and a that color. There's no emotional connection. There's just pretense, because if you don't pretend, you get sent to the fucking work camps. So people treat other people like that. That's the model. And the only reason they're still doing that is because they haven't taken over the world yet. And if they take over the world, the pretense will end. The only reason China still pretends to be a functioning democracy, it's because they don't want to face the embarrassment of not being. But when there's no one to embarrass anymore or be embarrassed in front of, why would you bother? When you're the last man on earth, you don't care if you're naked or not. Right.
Okay. So Rocco, come back here. And now we have two sides, left and right. And we have established that if you're easily able to pick a side, that path will invariably take you either towards totalitarianism or towards more division, towards always having to pick a
It
side.
can only.
It can only do that. So that is if you're able to easily pick a side. But there are people who are able to pick a side not because they align with this side, but because they totally feel disaligned, misaligned with this side. There could be people who feel that the right is so
Yeah,
ignorant.
this is the lesser of two evils.
Exactly, the lesser of two
Yes.
evils.
Yeah.
It's still an evil. It's still an
Yes,
evil.
it's lesser
This is
of
what
two
people,
evils is still an evil. Yes.
yeah, people forget that. So that is number one to remember. But they have to pick one. That is how we play the game of politics. That's how you
Of course.
play. You
Of
have to
course.
pick one, and people pick one, right? And what we have established is even though you've picked one, you've still picked an evil. So there is still a problem to be solved. You've not
Yes.
solved the problem, right?
Yes.
Right. So now let's talk about the third. I think that is where the solution lies. That is, and for anyone who's here with us right now and is looking for a solution, should understand already that the solution lies away from the game that we're already playing. We have to
It
transcend.
can only.
It can only lie there. Yes.
Because the game that we're talking about there is a binary game.
Mm.
And a binary game is yes, no. And
Mm.
all of our overwhelm in our head is because we want things that aren't yes, no to be yes, no.
Yes. Yes. Mm. Correct.
And that's
Correct.
the definition of a paradox. I want to resolve it, but I only want to resolve it through in a very one-dimensional way in which it won't be resolved.
Mm. 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 Yeah.
Um,
Okay. Go on, Rocco.
so
Mm.
the
I'm already establishing one thing, though, Rocco.
well,
I I wish to understand how we will reach that third dimension too, because I know for a fact that practically we'll still keep playing the election game, the political game of having to choose one. Okay, so let's talk about what the third dimension would look like and what it will take from individuals to get there. Individuals who are good faith actors and individuals who actually want to, be the carriers of the flame, to put it poetically, who actually want
you
to
want to
be.
light the way
Yes,
or lead the
exactly.
way. Yeah, yeah.
Lead the way. So we'll need both, but yes, let's talk about the third dimension and let's get into it. Hmm.
Thank you for staying with us till the end of this video. This seemed like a good place to pause the discussion around the why that we started out with. As a key takeaway, I would advise you to focus on considering where you lie on the Tim Urban classification that Rocco talked about. And more importantly, where you would want to lie, where you would want your leaders to lie, and then take your next actions accordingly. We build further on this theme in the remainder of the series too. Part 2 of this series will come out next week. That is, if you're watching this real time. If you're watching this in the future already, part 2 would have already released, would be appearing on your screen probably. And if not, you can check it out from the links down below in the description. I hope to see you in the playground with the same open mind and the same open heart. So, like this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and help us change the game together. Until next time, peace out.